Hello and welcome to RDTV today. My name's Paul and you've tuned in for the 90 minutes Hungaroring, an Assetto Corsa Competizione Racing Club event here at RaceDepartment. Available to all premium members, anyone can sign up to come and race with us, and today we've got 40 drivers taking on the Hungaroring circuit in a 90-minute semi-endurance race. We're going to do a quick look at the circuit before we throw over to Paul Glover and Paul Jeffrey at Racecoms, so we hope you enjoy the broadcast. Here we go then on a fast lap of the Hungaroring Hungarian Grand Prix circuit in the GT3 Aston Martin V8 Vantage in Assetto Corsa Competizione. Flat out down the start finish straight, the longest straight on the track. We look for our braking point just before the curb on the outside of the left hand side. Down into first gear, let the car run wide as it gets a little bit squirrely on the rear end as we look to gain as much traction as we possibly can into the difficult second corner left-hander. Braking, running a little bit wide now, just want to get it nipped back into the apex over to the left-hand side so we can get a good run and the power down through a flat-out corner. Be careful not to run wide onto the AstroTurf as we start going uphill now into one of the most difficult corners on the circuit. Down one gear into third, catch the inside curve, run the car out, power straight back on again before dropping to second gear. Try not to be greedy with the throttle, accelerate early, run the car to the outside of the circuit as we spot our braking point into the slowest part of the track, the chicane. Down into first gear in this Aston Martin, get on the power nice and early, up to second, avoid managing to change to third for the left-hander, sacrifice that corner a little for the right-hand turn here. Be careful once again not to run wide, get a cut track penalty. This corner flat out, no problem whatsoever in fourth. Drop it down a third, chuck the car into the corner, allow the rear end to bring the steering round a little bit for enough pivot before we watch our braking point once again. Down into first gear, be careful on the throttle not to lose the rear of the car and lose too much time. Up to third, back down a second, once again spotting our point on the inside, let the car run slightly wide to the outer curbing, accelerate up to the last corner. Again, very delicate on the brakes here, be careful not to be too greedy with the throttle, just apply enough of a loud pedal to push us down. The start finish straight again, hardly any time to rest. That's the Hungaroring. At 4.381 kilometres in length, the 14-turn Hungaroring circuit is a tight, twisty and often dusty racetrack that can produce processional racing. In a GT3 car, a 1 minute 44 second lap time will likely put you up at the sharp end of the grid, which means, with a full field of cars, finding track position is incredibly difficult on this circuit. The track opened in 1986 and hosts Formula 1 racing to this day. Perhaps best known for the 1997 Hungarian Grand Prix, where Damon Hill took the unfancied Arrows Yamaha to almost race victory before a mechanical problem lost the lead of the race in the dying moments to eventual world champion Jacques Villeneuve. Norbert Mikulits is the local hero of Hungary and has raced in the World Touring Car Championship to great success in the last few years. The track is tight, the track is difficult, but the GT3 cars, anything could happen, and we're looking forward to seeing if it does in this race as we pass over to the commentary team of Paul Glover and Paul Jeffrey. So yeah, qualification, Paul, being a very tight affair. We've got some big names at the front of the field. Wolf kind of set the pace really and walked away from everybody else, but P2 down to P40, very close indeed.
Yeah, it's a nice packed midfield as well after qualifying, and you've got your more experienced drivers at the front and your not so experienced drivers more to the rear. So we got, you know, what you regard to be noobs to the game. I think with the current global situation, there's a lot more races online at the moment, as we're seeing in general. So This was originally a 30 size grid, increased to 40. And the next event's going to be a 45er, to where we're just testing the limits of how many cars you can get on track, and everybody's PC can handle it, and so can the server, hopefully. So
I think, to be honest, we're testing the limits of driver skill as well. 40 cars around the Hungaroring is either going to be a recipe for disaster or the makings of a real find, similar to the motorsport.
Yes, yeah, definitely. I mean, this track's pretty narrow. It's got a couple of fast sections, especially the middle part of the track. It's kind of Suzuka-like in some regard. Formula One's here every year. It's one of my favourite tracks, to be honest. Like to watch, to race round. It's not as fun as you would hope, I don't think, but it's a good challenge, and I'm sure the drivers will look forward to that challenge as we approach the final corner.
Yeah, just as you were talking there, Paul, our pole sitter, Wolf, has just had a little bit of an off-track moment on the warm-up lap as we're coming into the last corner of the track, but seems to have regained his track position again, so he will be starting from the front of the field as the cars come down the start-finish straight, and watch for the green lights for the start of our race. Little bit of a dangerous moment there for Matasuka, but he's managed to get back on the track. We're looking for the green, which we've got 40 cars, 4 cars there with a drive-through penalty, not lining up on the double file start for the race. We head into turn 1. Glorious sight.
Yeah, as one car goes, I don't know who that is, but one car is off in the background onto the grass as we follow Rudolph as he goes wide into the first corner. It is a tricky braking zone down into that, and he's all over the back of Stevenson.
Yeah, the car off the track actually was our pole sitter. Matasuka has pulled over to the side of the circuit, so we'll keep an eye on there as we look at Rudolph now showing his inside up the inside of the Porsche 911 GT3 as we scale back now to Paul Jeffrey started in P4 in the resplendent Aston Martin under some pressure from the AMG Mercedes behind, and there is a Bentley and another Aston pretty much as one chasing the tail of that P4 car.
I could spot there that Mr. Glover has made about 6 positions at the start. He was in 6th in the grid, now up into 10th. So another great start there from the man who's able to get really great starts. But,
for some reason, going in a straight line and accelerating is very much a strong point of view, Mr. Paul Glover. So fab start to get up to P10 as we're still waiting for the timing screen to update themselves.
We've got a driver off in the grass, Verlini. And we cut back to Mr. Jeffrey.
Yeah, so Verlini then was running just in the lower reach of the top 10, I think about P12 at the time, so not quite sure what's happened to his Ferrari, but that puts him to the side of the road. And don't forget, it's a 40 car grid here, so dropping to the back, even though it's an hour and a half race, is going to be a significant disadvantage. So bad start there for Verlini, unfortunately.
Yeah, and also just note that Glover there's dropped down to 23rd. He's obviously had an off, and I think to your point, Paul, is when you have an off here and the grid is still only one lap into the race as the drivers come through to complete the first lap, everyone's still pretty close together. So we've got Powell, Pazzi and Lacomere, I think that's pronounced, all with drive-through penalties at the moment. They need to get those closed off, otherwise they'll be disqualified.
Yep, disappointing start for those 3 drivers. Already a pretty crucial mistake in the first couple of minutes of running. As we're watching now, Janssen in the AMG Mercedes piling on the pressure of the Aston Martin in front. The Mercedes is a very slippery car in a straight line as we flick back now to Jessa in the Audi R8 under some pressure from Powell behind in the Ferrari, trying to make up ground, no doubt, quickly to serve his drive-through penalty before, as you say, those 3 laps run out.
Yeah, this is it. When you have a drive-through penalty from the start, you've got 3 laps to complete that drive-through, and if you get caught speeding the pit lanes as well, that's a stop and go, which also has to be served within a 3-lap window. And the drivers should obviously know that they've got these penalties, as they're indicated by the red squares with DT clearly marked there. So we'll keep an eye out for these 3 drivers that currently have these penalties. They should be driving in soon, as Jeffrey is all over the back of Mr. Polgar.
Yep, so Polgar driving the 911 RSR Porsche in front is coming under a little bit of pressure from the Aston Martin behind, with Janssen again looking this way and that, trying to capitalise on any mistake. The problem with a track like the Hungaroring, you have to be very positive in your overtaking manoeuvre. You can't really afford to go in half-hearted or move the car around too much on the racetrack, because that's going to compromise you and leave the door wide open for the cars behind. So quite a technical racing experience around here, isn't it?
It is indeed, as Bolgo is, as you say, he's darting about a little bit behind Jeffrey. He's looking for a way, but it's probably something that I could improve in my driving, if I'm being honest, is having that patience. I think I often see it as I'm faster than the driver ahead, but as we see in real motorsports, it's all well and good being quick and catching up to the back of someone, but it's then having the know-how to get past that car and to potentially force them into mistake. And that's what Janssen here is going to be hoping that Jeffrey does. If he keeps applying, as one of the drive-throughs is clear, that's race control, just acknowledged on the screen there. Janssen is going to be hopefully applying pressure to Jeffrey as we're now go back a little bit further. We've got a bit of a battle here with Ermans in ninth.
Yep, so Ricardo, we're in P9 at the moment in the Audi, is in the middle of a four-way scrap for sixth position on track. So this again, going back to exactly what we were speaking about, you've got to try and attack and move forward, but at the same time, watch for a rearguard attack from the car behind, and also try and keep those tyres alive on what is quite a heavily tyre wear-inducing circuit. It's an hour and a half, don't forget, which is it's not a full-on endurance, I suppose, but it's still an endurance-centric event, so got to be a little bit cautious of your car. There's damage on in the server, of course, as well, so you can't afford any contact with the drivers around you. You really have to have your wits about you around here, and it's the kind of circuit where, although the barriers are set far enough back, you cannot afford to make a mistake because there's very little runoff, and the circuit is quite slippery as well, I think it's fair to say, in these server conditions at the least.
Yeah,
as we're looking now at Jeffrey, sorry to interrupt there, Paul, looking at Jeffrey trying to make a move on Polgar in front of him, but a good defensive driving from the Porsche driver, and that's now opening the door for the AMG Mercedes behind, but I think the Aston's got just enough of a run off a T1 to put himself into a safe position for the braking zone. Not really a passing manoeuvre, is a passing place, should I say, is T2.
Cars 93 and 17 have actually been disqualified there, so drivers have not observed their drive-through penalties and have been rightly disqualified.
Yeah, that's a disappointing result so early into a long race to have been disqualified.
Especially when you imagine the amount of practice that drivers have put in. Like to get a consistent lap time run here, you've got to put the time and effort in to have some race pace. Not necessarily be up front, but to be consistent and keep it on the black stuff is half the battle around here.
It is, and I've seen quite a few drivers showing up in some online public lobby races, getting some practice in on this track and on the RD practice server as well. So we do know that the drivers, although it's a fun race and it's a no-pressure environment, they are taking this very seriously indeed. As you can tell actually by looking at some of the names that are further down the field, we've got some fast drivers not at the front of the grid, so that just shows the level. And I also noticed that Bentley is back in 23rd position, so got that Ferrari going from his difficulties at the beginning of the race, so that's good news there.
Yeah, Blazak, who we've seen a few times in practice sessions, is also currently in 17th. And then we've got Miranda JP currently in 20th. We know he's new to ACC, so I don't think he was expecting to be high. He's more of a race room kind of guy, but I think after today he's going to be in love with this game.
Yeah, very strong performance so far for Miranda in P20, really impressive. As we continue to watch this fight for third, fourth and fifth position, a little bit, the Porsche seems to be gapping the Aston Martin behind a little bit now. Historically the Aston Martin a little bit slower in a straight line, but good under braking as we see it getting a bit squiggly, coming round T2 up into T3. This is a very difficult corner. Another thing, the viewers at home, I'll interrupt myself while I see the Mercedes now getting a run up the hill, but not quite enough as we flick back to John Patterson, P8, another Mercedes fighting the big massive Bentley in front of him.
Yeah, so you're about to say about, was it corner 6 and 7 there, isn't it? They're really tight with that kind of kink up. Yes, very tight, and also it's an hour and a half race and drivers are only allowed to do what is deemed a cut track 3 times before receiving a drive-through penalty, so that's something everybody needs in the back of their mind in what is essentially a long race. I mean, to be fair to the game, it's pretty good. If you lift off and you're not gaining time, it tends not to penalise you, so if you know you've run wide, just lift off the throttle a little bit as we go back to the battle for first and second.
Yeah, these are two guys that are definitely doing nothing like lifting off at the moment as they're fighting tooth and nail the first 10 minutes of the race. Anybody would think this is a sprint race the way these two have been going at it. Both drivers have shown a lot of speed so far in practice, qualification and the build up to the event as well. And with the disappointing start for Patterson from pole position, I think it was, dropping back through the field, there's an opportunity now for these guys to really shine and step up in front of the cameras at the lead of this race.
Yeah, currently the leaderboard only really showing us the top 24, but we know he's still in the race somewhere, so I'm sure he'll appear. He's got some amazing pace, Matsusuka. When I often see him sign up for a race, I know that I might as well just let him pass because I'm not going to be able to hold him up. He just has immense pace. And I think he's also been involved in some other online races lately, so really starting to show that pedigree.
Absolutely, as we're watching Michael Rudolph now absolutely on the edge of adhesion in the Ferrari, looking every way to try and get past the Bentley. I would suspect the Ferrari is perhaps a slightly faster car around this circuit. The Bentley's a little bit big and heavy, really good on the curbs, and it's also a massive car as well, which really makes defending a little bit easier on a tight track. As we look at John Patterson now again, still trying to find a way past Nieto in front. Patterson seems to have a little bit more lap time in the bag than the cars ahead of him, but as is always the problem with the Hungaroring, it's trying to get past somebody is the hardest part. And here's a rarity, Paul. There's a Lexus on track. I haven't seen many of those, or many Jaguars, to be honest. It tends to be the Porsche, the Audis, a few Astons, and a couple and the Ferraris. I mean, there's even a BMW on track. I think Miranda's in the BMW, the M6, isn't it? Not many of them either. So it is definitely a rarity, and the Audis tend to go pretty well around here as well. But go back to your comment on the Ferrari, it's definitely, I think, one of the better tracks for the Ferrari. And the Bentley, like you say, it's very, very wide, so when you come up on one, it's like you're approaching a boat, and it doesn't leave you a lot of room, so you really have to. But then I find like the Audi's really good drive. As we look at Matsumona is trying to close down on Ricardo Humans. Yep, good driving so far from this little field. And to be honest, so far, although we're only kind of like 12 or 13 minutes into the race, there's been good driving throughout the field. I've not seen any significant incidents at this moment in time. So everybody's keeping the powder dry a little bit for the beginning of the race, I think, and just seeing how things pan out, let the car settle down as we see Janssen going a little bit wide in the Mercedes, but managing to keep the car on the track and live to fight another day as he continues his relentless pursuit of the Aston Martin of Paul Jeffrey, currently holding fourth and dropping back a little, it seems, from the Porsche in front. Yeah,
I was going to say, in a couple of the braking zones, in a couple of corners, the Mercedes looks a little bit the better car, but the Aston of Jeffrey is holding him well back. But I guess each car is going to have its strengths. So there's certain sections of the track where each car is going to be going. As Matsumoma is getting very close to Ricardo Humans now for the battle.
Actually, Matsumoma's moved up to P9, so I think there may have been an issue for Nieto.
There's a coming together there in.
That's disappointing to see. A little contact there, a little bit too. That's going back to what we spoke about earlier, Paul, about half-hearted manoeuvres. So not really fully up the inside. The car in front wasn't aware what was happening. Closed the door, and sadly, the inevitable happened, and both cars lose a bag full of time there.
As is club racing rather than league, the drivers, if they are to cause an incident, are supposed to wait behind.
Yes, follow the golden rule.
Exactly. Yeah. So we want to be competitive, but we also want the events to be fun for all, and that's important.
Yeah, gentlemen, the driving standards is something that we're very keen on here as well. Looking now at looking at the inside into T1, a little bit too far away as the camera shifts away back to the race leading battle up front. Michael Rudolph again, still hounding the big Bentley, a little bit better on the brakes it seems, just showing his nose, but I can't see Stevenson cracking under the pressure anytime soon, just holding his line, allowing the sheer size of that big Bentley to
He's forced the Bentley to take a different line there, and he's got the inside now, so but now it turns into the outside, so he's not going to be able to make that move stick.
No, Stevenson knows exactly what's happening there. He just keeps everything nice and calm. Rudolph's aware that there's going to be running out of, ever increasingly running out of space on the road, and does the wise thing, comes off the throttle a little bit, and lives to fight another day. So good driving from both drivers there. Really good display of high quality craftsmanship, which just goes to show, Paul, that this is our community members. These are not esports stars or real world drivers. These are our race department community members, and the level is as good as I've seen it anywhere in recent weeks and months.
I've watched some of the recent esports events that are out there that have pro drivers, and to be honest, the sim races are more used to this kind of environment, so tend to be actually less prone to mistakes than the pros are. It takes a lot of hours of practice, just like it does in a real car, whether that be Formula 1, DTM, GT3, or GT4s, or Formula 2s. Everything takes practice. So excuse me, just because you're a professional and you jump into sim racing doesn't mean you're going to be any good, because you don't get the same kind of feel that you do in a real car. So it's good to see some really close racing. And what I liked about that that attack in the chicane, as we come back round to that part of the circuit now, is that Rudolph forced Stevenson to take a different line, which kind of opened the door a little bit, but just didn't have the grip to make that really stick.
No, some really good racing there, you're absolutely right. As we flick back again to John Patterson in the AMG Mercedes, currently in P7, so chasing down the car in front, which is a Jaguar, actually. Speaking of the Jag that we don't see much of, really good drive from Halali there in P6 so far. The Jag's a very compliant car, not necessarily outright the quickest, but a car that doesn't mind curves, is pretty good on the brakes and reasonably stable, so that may well hold Halali in good stead going forward, as this is quite a long race, and looking after your tyres, keeping the car in prime condition throughout the full hour and 30 minutes is going to be a key factor. As he runs a little bit wide now, Patterson really applying the pressure, looking to the outside, which will become the inside. There's not a big enough braking point there, so nips back behind the Jaguar again, but gets a better run off the corner. Will you have a look up the inside? He's showing his nose, trying to apply a little bit of pressure, but Halali's aware of that one, gets the car turned in, runs it wide to the outside curb, and defends himself quite nicely. No way pass into this corner, and again should be safe into the final turn. As we look back at Caitlin now, P8 managing to get past that Bentley eventually, runs the Bentley out of road. Very nice drive there, and a position gain for the Porsche.
Yeah, and four cars very close together on the track, and you've got these mini battles starting to develop up and down the field, which will keep the race interesting for many to come. As we come to the clock, we've got 1 minute and 13 seconds remaining so far. It'd be interesting to see what strategies people take, whether they'll do multiple pit stops or whether they'll just do the one. The tyres should last an hour at least. Potentially could last an hour and a half, but I wouldn't necessarily push it that far. So it'd be interesting to see what strategies are employed by the drivers.
It will indeed, and as you were talking there, Stacker just manages to get the Aston Martin up the inside of Oomans, I think it is there, to make a position up, so a little bit of a better braking point into T1, and manages to run Oomans out of space, and the Dutchman very wisely backs off and allows the position to concede the position, shall I say. So good drive there from Stacker in the Aston Martin, who now immediately closes up to the back of Nieto, who's in a bit of trouble in the Bentley, I think, at the moment. Nieto dropping back slowly but surely, and starting to run out of pace as we look up the inside into the chicane, but there's no doing there, I don't think. Gets back into position, but now puts himself under pressure from the chasing Ricardo Oomans behind.
Yeah, so Oomans looked like a moment ago he was going to be falling into the clutches of Jessup, but seems to have gapped that a little bit again now, and he's now, it's a lot easier. As a car goes wide on the left there, I think that might have been Nieto in the Bentley. So he goes a little bit wide as we come into the third to last corner of the circuit, as we're still looking at Salaka. But yeah, Oomans, he's in a bit of a sandwich now, because up ahead, is it maybe Caitlin is pulling away a little bit in the Porsche. But the interesting thing about the Porsche, though, Paul, I know I think we discussed this during the week. Where the engine is placed and where the fuel tank is therefore placed, the car tends to run better when it's got more fuel on board. So it'd be interesting to see what the drivers are doing in that regard, because I found that when it's got less fuel, it's just a handful, that Porsche.
And that is a really good point, and brings us on to a wise bit of housekeeping maybe worth mentioning to the folks at home. This is an hour and a half race. There is no mandatory pit window, so you cannot fill the car enough to complete the full race distance, but your pit stop strategy is entirely free of choice, so you can run short, long, 1 stop, 2 stop, 3 stop. It's entirely up to the drivers, and that may have a big impact on how things play out. So overtaking being so difficult makes an attractive option to maybe undercut some of the cars if you're in traffic, or overcut if you're having good lap pace, or if you cause damage to your tyres you may want to pit a little bit earlier than is optimal on the strategy. So that's one we'll have to keep our eyes on as the race progresses as well, Paul. Another interesting dynamic into what's already only 20 minutes in, proving to be a fascinating race so far.
Indeed, Paul. And also another thing to remind our viewers is that these cars do have ABS and they also have traction control, so drivers can tweak those throughout the race and add a bit of ABS or remove a bit of ABS or traction control, however they feel. As Patterson goes on the inside of Halili, can he make it stick as we go into the final corner? He's now on the outside. He'll cut back a little bit and now try and get into the slipstream of Halili as they head down to the start-finish straight. And it's all about all-important braking zone here, especially if someone hasn't taken out the braking marker. It really helps if that's in place for the drivers as they come down the hill. And Patterson is just a little bit too far back and thinks better off making a move.
Yeah, John Patterson must be getting a little bit frustrated now in the cockpit of that Mercedes AMG. He's been behind the Jaguar for pretty much the duration of the race so far. He's clearly got more pace, but as we look now, as Carlson shows his nose at the inside of the struggling Nieto at the moment in the Bentley, in front. Nieto, remember, ran really wide a few laps ago, manages to avoid contact with the barriers, so should be damage free, and the tyres should have cleaned up by now, but just prior to Nieto's running wide moment, he was struggling for pace, so that's a driver that looks like he's plummeting backwards very quickly. One to watch is Patterson now up the inside into the chicane, a dangerous position to go for it, full trust required, and thinks wiser of it, quite wisely, and backs out a little bit and lives to fight another day as he continues this fascinating pursuit of the big old Jag in front of him.
We can see that Bellini has made his way back up to 15th position after the issue on the first lap. Glover's now up to 24th, but I think Mutsutaka is currently in 25th, so I'm sure he'll be making his way up through the grid or shortly, even though this is a tight track. So watch out. Oh, there he is. He's now in 23rd. He's just overtaken Glover. So there you go.
Yeah, fantastic performance so far. It's I'm not quite sure exactly what happened to him to lose so much time at the beginning of the race. We saw him have a difficulty on the warm-up lap, so maybe those two incidents are connected, but I'm sure we will find out later on as we look back now at the struggling Bentley. Lost another position, so Daniel Nieto in the big Bentley now in P13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 positions is lost in the last few laps as Carlson finds his way past. As we look back now at Rudolph, was closer than it's been for quite some time. These front two cars have given absolutely everything so far in the first 22 minutes and change of this race.
Yeah, the pressure from Rudolph is absolutely relentless as we now go down into 15th and look at Bellini into the first corner behind Nix, and he's too far back, but Bellini driving the Ferrari and Nix in the Jaguar. And Bellini's made some really good progress following the first lap incident that he had. So showing some good solid pace. And again, he'll be wanting to make a move and get past Nix and then get after Nieto. On Nieto, I'm wondering whether those tyres in the Bentley will come back to him. So sometimes these tyres do go through phases, and you never know, he might start to find some grip and some pace once more.
Yep, that's something I've found myself as we flick back to the leaders. Actually, this is really good news for 3, 4, 5 and 6 behind, as these two continue to squabble over the track and they're holding each other up, which means they've only really gapped P3 Polgar in the Porsche by 4.6 seconds. So these two continuing their battle allows the rest of the field to still stay in with a reasonable chance. The pit lane entrance is quite a difficult one here at the Hungaroring, so you can lose a couple of seconds coming in and out of pit road. So Polgar in the Porsche will be keen to try and up the pace a little bit, gap himself from Jeffrey. It's currently 0.5 of a second, and stay within shooting distance of the lead cars as we're getting closer to the opening phase of pit stops. I would imagine around the half distance in this race at 45 minutes. remaining. So still another 15-20 minutes away from that yet, but these things flash by in a moment when you're on track.
Yeah, indeed. Like you said, there's no mandatory pit, so there's no mandatory tyre change. As Blazak goes on the inside of Oomans into the first corner. Oomans manages to keep on the outside there and gets the better line out as they head down to the second corner to the left-hander.
Yeah, that's a really brave move from Blazak then, really late on the brakes, manages to get the car nice and tight into the corner, so both drivers giving each other good racing room as we go back to the fight for P3 and now eventually back up to P2. Both sets of cars, so 1 and 2, 3 and 4, are separated by nothing more than a cigarette paper between them as they're continuing this beautiful charge to hopefully get a clean way past each other as we're getting through the first of the back markers now. So the first bit of traffic is starting to appear on track, which adds another different dynamic to the race as well. It will, with a track as tight as this one, the cars that you come up to lap have to be aware that you're there and help you through, otherwise it can become a massive time sink trying to find your way past those slower cars.
Yeah, it's the back marker pits as well. Yeah, you're 100% right there, Paul. It takes two to tango. It takes the back markers to be aware of where the leaders are coming through, but also for the back markers to the leaders to be a little bit patient with it as well, because they are battling for first and second currently, but they also want to get past the back markers, but they also don't want to end their race at that particular moment. So having a bit of patience does pay dividends sometimes, and unfortunately you catch a back marker in the wrong place and there isn't a lot of room to pass. So you have to show a bit of patience as we're watching Blazak and Oomans as Oomans goes wide into the final corner.
Yep, Ricardo Oomans there doing a little bit of grass cutting on the AstroTurf. Manages to get back onto the track before he gets to the really slippery stuff. But this is showing a little bit of pressure now. So Ricardo Oomans running wide as well into T1. So Blazak's got a lot more pace into the opening corner, but loses the traction coming out of the turn, which protects Oomans into T2. This fight's another one that I think both cars are very evenly matched but fast in different parts of the circuit as we flick back once again to John Patterson, trying everything he possibly can in that Mercedes to get past the old Emil Frey Jaguar in front.
What's your favourite part of the circuit, Paul?
To be honest, it's one of those tracks where I didn't like it when I signed up for the race, but the more laps I've done, the more it starts giving back to me. So I'm quite a fan of the second sector after the chicane and the Suzuka-esque corners.
Yeah, I mean the chicane itself, I sometimes find a little bit problematic at times, especially if you hit the sausage curves too hard and then that's it, the car's in a spin. So you have to make sure that you get that entry right. So you kind of sacrifice the entry to get a good exit out, and then the following corners as well are kind of the same actually. If you sacrifice the entry, which is what you mentioned on your lap you did of the track, like if you sacrifice that for the second corner, you just get a better exit out and better traction because of that.
Yeah, it's one of those tracks that it's not a ballsy driver's track like a Spa-Francorchamps or Suzuka where we raced last time, but it's a really technical circuit that rewards patience, rewards being concise with your movements and neat with the car behaviour, and I kind of enjoy that sort of thing. It's nice to sometimes not just go flat chat through corners and hold on for dear life, but to place it where you need to be and be gentle on the throttle and the brakes. It's a different experience, and I always kind of thought it was a too small circuit for a GT3 car, but having spent a lot of time on it preparing for this race and participating in it, I've now come to love it a little bit.
So these two are gapping Polgar a little bit, who's in third. So the gap has increased from 4.1 to 4.6. It's not a lot. And also, Paul Jeffrey has dropped back a little bit from third. And then you've got a little bit of gap there to Janssen currently as well. As we go back to looking at Bellini, currently in 42. Still hasn't got past Nix, but they're still very close together on track.
Yep, Bellini seems to be in the middle of every bit of track action so far in this race. Giacomo Bellini in the 488 Ferrari GT3 has been involved in plenty of excitement so far and is continuing to do so. He's looking at Carlson and Nix in front of him. These two, the Aston and the Jaguar ahead, are continuing their fight, but Bellini's maybe playing a clever game here, playing a watching brief, letting these two fight with each other, hold each other up, and then seeing if any opportunities present themselves. As I'm saying in that one, Marks now runs a little bit wide out onto the marbles, loses a couple of positions, almost collects the car as he comes back on a circuit, but just about manages to survive. So David Marks down in 22nd position at the moment, having a handful on the moment. I lost a bit of space, a little bit of time, should I say, sorry, and he's coming under pressure from Miranda behind. So scruffy few laps, he runs wide again. It gives Miranda an opportunity to pass round the outside. Miranda stays nice and brave there. Marks backs off, gets it back on the racing line as we see another car off the circuit in front. So it's all cracking off, man.
Yeah, as the tyre life starts to come into play a little bit more, these drivers, there's a blue flag out there as well from the marshals, the people have got to be a little bit clever with their tyre wear. As we're looking at Bellini at the back of Carlson going into the first corner. There's a little bit of contact there as Carlson's on the inside in the Aston Martin, but Bellini in the Ferrari makes it stick. Just seems to have better grip coming out there, better traction. So a good move there.
Yep, good driving from both drivers and plenty of bravery from Bellini to hang it around the outside, which is always a dangerous place to find yourself in any corner on any track. So
that
driving
obviously means Nix has got past him as well. So now Bellini's got to hunt down Nix once more.
Yeah, and Nix actually has got himself a bit of an advantage now, so he's won 2.1 seconds track advantage as we see Rudolph now getting pushed rudely out to the side of the circuit as he's looking to find a way desperately past the Bentley of Stevenson in the race lead. So Michael Rudolph absolutely giving everything he's got to try and find a way past that blue and red race department colours, hooray, Bentley in front, and so far no dice as we now drop into the final hour of the race. So 30 minutes already over and done with, and these two have got plenty more fight left in them yet.
That's gone absolutely quickly, hasn't it? It's just flown by, that 30 minutes, and so maybe 15 minutes more we'll start seeing some of the guys pitting. I'd just like to bring your attention to Matsusuka is up into 17th position now.
Outstanding performance so far from Matsusuka, 13th position, and likely to start making more.
Yeah, and I also wanted to add, there's some great looking skins out there now. Now that ACC has the ability to have some skins, there are some lovely looking cars on show. As Stevenson gets the rear end trying to come around to say hello, which gives Rudolph the opportunity to get a little bit closer as they approach the chicane. Rudolph there takes a little bit more curve than Stevenson, trying to use as much track as possible to gain an advantage, but unable to make it stick quite yet. But if he can just remain calm and just stick behind him and get as close as he can into the final corner, that's the biggest overtaking point on this circuit. And even though these guys are still fighting, Polgar and Jeffrey and Janssen are not closing up on these two.
Yeah, to be honest, I think that's a code brown for both drivers there. Stevenson really got the big Bentley hung round that corner, and I think both drivers, Rudolph and Stevenson, thought they were heading straight to the scene of the accident, but both managed to recover nicely, and Rudolph will take heart from that, I think. He's seen that the Bentley's starting to go away a little bit from Stevenson in front, starting to apply a little bit of pressure, and this will feel very much like Rudolph's opportunity now. You can see the body language of that 488 Ferrari. He's looking to keep it nice and calm, keep it on the racing line, allow Stevenson to defend fresh air, and hopefully he can get a run through T1, which he does. Very fast run through T1 now, separated, there's no way past. Stevenson knows what's happening, goes to the inside on the defensive. Rudolph got no opportunity there, tries to do a cutback, but Stevenson keeps the door firmly closed in his face, and this is turning out to be a cracking fight from these two. And as you say, Polgar 4.3 behind as Rudolph again gets a run. He's fast in all the wrong places. He's fast in spots where there's just not room for two cars to run side by side.
Yeah, he's just got to hope that his tyre life starts to go. We're looking at Sadaka looking pretty slow there into the first corner. We missed whatever happened there. But as we go to helicopter cam, he's under pressure from. I think Umans has got past already. The leaderboard hasn't updated yet, so I think that must be Blasak currently behind him. So, but yeah, no, it's the tyre thing is quite interesting in this game. One moment they're gone, and the next moment you feel like the tyres are back, and you're feeling confident, and you can visibly see when a driver's feeling more confident than the other, and it's a lot easier to be chasing than being chased as well, isn't it, Paul?
Oh yeah, it's always easy to put a car behind. You can see what the car in front's doing and just do the same thing but a little bit later to gain some advantage. Much like Yazak's doing now at the moment, the two Aston Martins side by side. Runs the front Aston Martin a little bit wide but not quite enough to get the car up the inside, and it's a foolish man's game trying to go up the inside into that chicane. I think it's too tight and there's the sausage curbs, as you mentioned earlier, always waiting to catch somebody out. So yeah, live to fight on, I think, in that one. The white Aston Martin, the meat in the sandwich of these three cars, currently fighting for 14, 15 and 16 as the Aston looks up the inside now. This is a perfect run into the following left hand. He's going to be careful on the brakes. Both cars are aware what's happening. The second Aston knows what's happening, comes off of the brakes, just releases, but that opens the door for, I believe it's a Ferrari, goes around the outside.
That was avoidable.
Contact.
Yeah, that was avoidable. I mean, he's to blame there. I don't think the other two drivers are anything to blame. I think that was completely avoidable.
It was, and now the Audi, I think
that's an open door there for Matsusuka to get up into 15th position. So, and he'll be hunting these two down pretty soon.
Yeah, shame to see that one. I mean, some good close racing, got a little bit frantic. The Audi seems to have a little bit more pace at this stage in the race than the two Aston Martins, and he's really trying to press home his advantage now, but a bit of aggression there and not quite aware exactly what's going on around him. This is the problem when you've got three cars fighting for a piece of track big enough for 1 1/3 as the Aston runs a little bit wide now, opens the door to the Aston,
bold,
to the Audi.
That's bold, that's really bold on the inside there. Again, there's quite a curb there as you go down the hill, and as Rudolph is attacking Stevenson into the second to last corner there, as they come up the slight incline into the front. So again, making another attack, but unable to make it stick as they coming down the start-finish straight, following a back marker who's just moved over to the side. This is what we like to see. We like to see back markers playing their part in what is a great race. Oh, as Rudolph, that looks like it in the inside, but the back marker has clipped both of them. Luckily, it's only a slight tap, but that's given now Rudolph the lead. The back marker completely outbraked himself. Should have been more aware there, and that's a shame. But I don't think it's ended anybody's race enough. I don't think we'll have flat spots or anything like that, or too much damage on those cars. So it's a shame that's given Rudolph the lead, and Stevenson's now in second place. And
yeah, that's a little bit messy there from through lap traffic. I think Rudolph tried to make a move on Stevenson while going through lap traffic, and everybody got a little bit confused. The red back marker Ferrari kind of missed his spot on braking point, but the big news is that moves Polgar into the race lead.
Oh yeah, I completely missed that. I thought they still had the lead, but no, the 4-second gap has gone, and these are now the two leading cars.
And this plays into perfectly what we were speaking about at the beginning of the broadcast of Polgar wanting to try and maintain a good pace and not be too defensive from the Aston behind in case of incidents or pit windows or anything like that. And that's played perfectly in the hands of Polgar now, who takes the lead in the 911 RSR GT3. Paul Jeffrey running second in the Aston Martin. Rudolph has managed to sneak in front of Janssen in the Mercedes, so Janssen dropped back a little bit from the at the time third and fourth place battle, and that allows Rudolph to slide back into that one with Stevenson now dropping down to fifth position. So disappointing outcome for the two race leaders, but they've got pace to spare at the moment, so it'll be very interesting to see. Now Rudolph's been freed up from the back of the Bentley in front, if he's got enough pace to start closing the gap, as Stevenson shows his nose at the inside, but he's a little bit too far away to make that happen at this stage.
Yeah, interesting stuff. That back marker's really thrown a curveball into the race. So will Rudolph get onto the back of Jeffrey anytime soon? There's currently a 1.5 second gap, and then it's 400 second back to Janssen, who was indeed the one having a look into the first corner there, because Stevenson's the Bentley behind in fifth.
I mean, undoubtedly the back marker did cause a lot of that fracas we saw earlier, but it was a little bit aggressive from Rudolph, trying to take advantage of the confusion caused by passing that Ferrari and take a fight for the lead that sort of instigated the incident. Although I'm not wanting to apportion blame on any quarter, that is sadly,
no, I would.
what
If I
happens on short
was
tracks like
Rudolph,
this?
that's exactly what I would have done. I would have tried to use that as an advantage because there hasn't really been much opportunity in the 40 minutes, the 39 minutes that we've been watching this race already. So yeah, I mean, I think as the legendary drivers always said, you go for the gap, and there was a gap, and he tried to go for it. He just, unfortunately, the back marker didn't really hit the brakes early enough and completely outbraced himself.
And with that change of the leader, so with Polgar taking the race lead, seems to have energised Jeffrey now in the Aston Martin, currently in P2, but showing a lot of aggression now. So starting to put the foot down a little bit and start to find a way past that car in front. These two, remember, have been nose to tail for the duration of the race. So for the last 30, 35, 40 minutes or so, these two cars have been glued together, and Jeffrey will be getting bored of seeing the back of that Porsche now, and I can attest for that because I am Jeffrey and I am bored at this point of seeing the back of that Porsche. But
well, this is it. I mean, that's
way.
probably the same for Rudolph a moment ago. Stuck behind Stevenson for the first 40 minutes of the race, and I'm sure there are other drivers, but I just want to bring your attention to Matsusuka there in 13th. Was 4 seconds behind Vellini in 12th. Has now brought that down to under 2. So the last couple of laps has gapped 2 seconds on him. So I'm expecting Matsusuka to catch and pass shortly in the number 45 Audi.
Yeah, as we're doing this as as live broadcast rather than live, we don't have live timing to tell you the lap times being used by Matsusuka at the moment, but I can tell you straight away that is incredible pace so far from the driver as former race leader.
It brings it down even more, sorry Paul, it's now under 800ths of a second.
That's otherworldly. That's basically on a different plane to the rest of the drivers so far, and that's showing, as you say, he's worked his way up from 13th, from pretty much plumb last, in only about 45 minutes. So fabulous drive now as we continue to look at this excellent fight with Rudolph closed straight back in again. So Rudolph's got more pace than these two cars in front and has immediately brought himself onto the tail of the fight for the leaders. So we're getting dangerously close to sensible first pit stop time, so it'll be interesting to see what these two cars will be, or sorry, 3 cars should I say, will choose to do.
Yeah, who's going to blink first? That's the question, isn't it, Paul? I mean, some like, do you follow them in or do you go out one? If you feel confident you've got that little bit of pace still, like we said a few laps ago, it's a lot easier to chase someone, and that sometimes gives you a bit of false sense of security. As Rudolph kind of nearly clips the back of Jeffrey there into the first corner. But yeah, I mean, sometimes when you're following another car, it gives you a false sense of security. So do you just follow in and the hope your pit goes smoother than the other guy, or do you do another lap in the hope that you can? But then when the other car comes out of the pit, it's still on fresh rubber. So yeah, it's or do you just blink first and go in and let the other car? Because if you're behind the other car, they can't follow you in the pits. You just go in. As a drive through for car number 75 for track limits, that's Mattia, I think that is. So got a drive through to serve there in 3 laps time.
Yep, unfortunate there for car number 73, but as we said earlier, there's only 3...
75 is the one that got the drive-through.
Sorry, 75.
Yeah.
There's only 3 opportunities you have for going off track before you receive a drive-through, and a tight track, so many cars as this on the circuit at any one time, that's very difficult to keep it on the black stuff for the full duration of the race. So, 3 laps, and then that car will have to serve its drive-through penalty as we again go back to the race-leading fight. So Rudolph, after that excitement into T1 where he just missed his braking point and almost collected the back of the front 2 cars, has lost a couple of tenths of a second now, which opens the door a little for Jeffrey to have an attack on the Porsche in front of him.
Yeah, I'd also like to just looking up the leaderboard, Uman's now in 8th position, made a few gains there in the car 69 in the Audi. A solid race from Ricciardo actually, and Patterson's and Halili are still relatively close together. Actually, no, they're not. They're gapping a little bit more. So I wonder if one of them's pitted at some point. But these guys here, Polgar, Jeffrey, it's gapped now to half a second. Rudolph's backed up a little bit to a second behind Jeffrey. With Stevenson 1.5 seconds behind that. As we're now looking at the battle, Matsusuka has got past Vellini already, so he's now up to 12th position as we're watching the Italian in the Italian car.
Yeah, Matasuka's basically driving an LMP1 car against a field of GT3s at this moment in time with the pace he's showing. Fantastic performance there from Wolf as we see a car coming into the pit lane behind. So
we've got another one, car 21, he must be opposite. I think that's Uzak, he's serving a drive-through there. So yeah.
And Patterson as well in the pits from 7th position. So the Mercedes deciding he's had enough of staring at the back of the cars in front and decides to throw the car into pit lane, see if he can maybe undercut the cars, because actually now we're getting thickly into back marker lapping
kind of the 45-minute window, aren't we? So it's a little bit short there from Patterson. Actually, I think he felt the need to come in, but he hasn't quite made the 45-minute mark.
Yep, as Jeffrey runs wide a little bit and now starts to come under pressure from Rudolph behind, looking up the inside, a little bit defensive from the Aston Martin. Rudolph doesn't have enough room to find a way past in the interestingly liveried Ferrari behind. Again, hard on the brakes, faster and faster in the braking points than the Aston Martin in front, and this is a good opportunity now for Jeffrey to pull into the pit lane, sees traffic in front and decides to try the undercut routine on the Porsche in front. So this is the first of the front running cars we've seen down pit lane so far for the first of probably one stop at this stage in the race.
Yeah, so Jeffrey and Rudolph both in the pits, as you say, and Stevens Polgar now takes the lead, followed by Stevenson 2.6 seconds behind. So Polgar, going a little bit longer than Jeffrey. So interesting strategies now coming out to players where we're looking at Catalin, Salaka and Matasuka. So 8th, 9th and 10th.
As we see the Audi behind pulling into pit lane as well. So first stop for Matsuoka, looking to get that out of the way before having to try and tackle the cars in front of him, which with the raw lap pace he's got over the rivals, probably a wise move. But this is a big opportunity, Paul, for Will Stevenson in P2, who, as we remember, lost quite a bit of time with that first corner traffic incident earlier on from race lead. So Will Stevenson staying out a little bit longer than his main rival Rudolph, and hopefully trying to make a little bit of time back, but having some difficulty in traffic there. Caught the Porsche
the back marker was a bit unfair there. He should have backed out a little bit sooner, especially before the chicane, because lost quite a bit of time there through the chicane, and then the back marker went wide slightly, which didn't do him any favours. But he's now 3.3 seconds, so he lost about a second there, which if I was Stevenson, I'd be a little bit annoyed.
And that's the gamble one takes to stay out when you're in a heavy traffic situation. So Will Stevenson has lost a little bit of time over his direct rival Michael Rudolph, who Rudolph himself has come out in 12th position, just behind Jeffrey. So the Aston Martin crew working a good job on Paul Jeffrey's Aston Martin, who stays in front, which is a net gain on the overall race position, and keeps himself in 11th and still in the fight for top 3 or 4 positions.
Yeah, Salaka less than half a second behind Catalin, and we've got an Aston Martin and Porsche battle. We've currently got a Porsche in the lead as well. There are quite a few Audis out there. It just shows you that the car is quite a reliable vehicle. You can see that Glover's got himself back up into 16th now. He was all the way back down in 25th earlier on. Halidi's now in 4th as well with the pits window. As who's that's just gone into the pits? I didn't quite see who that was, but we're watching Umans, who's now up into 5th position.
Yep, we're talking of pit strategies. Will Stevenson and Janssen have both decided to hit pit lane. So Stevenson realising now, I think, that the overcut isn't going to work for him due to the sheer volume of cars in his real estate on track at the moment. So will be interesting to see where Stevenson comes out relative to Rudolph. Rudolph currently in 12th, and I think he had in or around a 4 or 5 seconds in hand over Stevenson before the pit stop. So I'll be curious to keep an eye on those times to see if it's made any difference to the overall
stop-and-go penalty
order.
To Stevenson. So 30 seconds stop and go there. So he's sped in the pit lane, unfortunately. So that's kind of ruined. I don't know what I was going to say there, but it's kind of put into his probably win today, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Talking of men who are likely to win this, Matsusuka has fallen back to 19th. I can only imagine that's because he took a pit window. So he's got a bit of work cut out, but hopefully some of the drivers ahead of him have yet to pit. So as I can see, Janssen and Slacker are now both in the pits as well, currently.
Yeah, so things are heading from bad to worse for Will Stevenson after a great start. Didn't put a foot wrong at the front of the field in his intense fight with Rudolph, it was. Forgot for a moment there. Will Stevenson's blotted the copybook slightly, got a stop-go penalty, which is that's a massive penalisation for a relatively small issue.
Yeah,
so Will Stevenson well out of the running now.
I kind of think that as well, considering with the track limits you get a drive-through. I think a drive-through would be far enough, because a drive-through you're already losing about 30 seconds, and with a stop-go I think you're probably losing about a minute.
And it's only a minute 45-second lap time, so that's the thick end of a full lap that you're throwing away. So shame there, but Polgar remains at the lead of the race, staying out in the Porsche. So Polgar running very long on his first stint, which may explain why he was struggling a little bit for pace coming up to the pit stop window. And that'll be interesting again, another interesting factor. Lots of interesting things going off today, but that'll be interesting to see how that pans out for him as the race unfolds a little bit later on. So Polgar
and stop and go for car. So 108 has come up. So still hasn't. That's Stevenson again. So he hasn't gone in yet to serve it. He's gone round. So
he has 3 laps, doesn't he? Just like on the drive-through to serve that penalty for.
And I know we've been looking at Vellini, but Vellini's now coming in 5th, and Nix is in 4th, and that puts Umans up to 3rd and Halili 2nd with the pit stop. So these guys are high up at the moment because they haven't pitted. So. We're not sure about the ultimate pace or whether they'll actually keep these positions, but you've got Jeffries. I've just seen it's gone up into 6th because he was currently in 7th, so now in 6th as well, and he's 20 seconds behind this group.
Yeah, so quite a few drivers opting to stay out a little bit longer than their rivals, which is the beauty of having no pit window. The opportunity entirely in your own hands as to what you want to do, and that'll be interesting to see how that shakes out for the likes of Umans and Nix and Vellini, etc. As you see, Jeffrey currently just by a hair's whisker in front of Rudolph, 6th and 7th at the moment. Will Stevenson currently running 9th, but as we know, going to serve a penalty and basically drop to an entirely different round of the championship altogether, as Vellini now comes into pit lane. So the Ferrari looking to have a good pit entry. It seems to be nice and neat as we follow Umans, currently running in the last of the podium places, P3. So good drive so far from Ricardo Umans.
Yeah, solid start, solid race. Not the quickest, but it's keeping it on the black stuff relatively well. As we're looking at Rudolph putting pressure on Mr. Jeffrey as they come out the final corner. Has got a good run on the Aston. He's getting close to the bumper. He moves over to the right hand side. Has he got the overdrive? I think he has. He looks like he's just got ahead there as they come into the braking zone. Can he make it stop? Yeah, that was an easy pass, really. Just seemed to have more grip there, didn't he, in the Ferrari? Made that look so easy.
Well, if I was Mr. Jeffrey, I'd have been thinking I might apply a little bit of brake on that start-finish straight and let him go, because he's faster than me, and it's going to be slower overall for my race if I try and fight the he's inevitably going to get past me. There's 40 minutes to go, so just let the guy go, try and follow him, stay in his wheel tracks, and overall lose net less time on the racetrack. So yeah, better tactics there, allowing Rudolph in front, but probably the wise moves. I can't imagine keeping a car like that behind for a full 40 minutes.
And Stevenson is now doing his stop and go 30-second penalty, so hopefully he hits the pit limiter and doesn't get another one. And also Nix has pitted as well, so he's now into 8th, and so has Halili. So the only Uman's still not to pit. He's still in 2nd position, and neither has Polgar, who's currently in 1st. And car 108 cleared, stop and go.
Brilliant. So good result for, a good result, relatively speaking, for Stevenson to retain that position. As Ricardo Umans jumps down pit lane now. So 37.5 minutes left on the clock. Ricardo Umans comes to serve his first and hopefully only pit stop of the event. But Polgar is staying out there in the Porsche. So Polgar's having a nice run at the front of the field, and his tyres now must be getting a little bit exciting, surely, with almost a full hour's worth of running on them so far, and at a high pace as well.
Well, also note that Glover's in 6th, so I don't think he's pitted either. So he might come in the next 6 minutes or so. So might be his plan. But Yeah, and Matsusuka's already up into 9th in car number 45. I mean, it's just like no one else might as well be here. Really, you know, he just makes it look so easy, ridiculous.
Yeah, he does a fantastic drive, and it's
nice
good
guy to boot as well. Nice guy.
Good for the broadcast. He had whatever difficulties he did at the beginning of the race. Otherwise, that I fear he would have streaked away at the front of the field. So adds another layer of intrigue into what's been so far, Paul, an exceptional race. I think I've really enjoyed.
You've had a couple of bits. As we're looking at Bellini, but there's a battle behind him at the moment with the Lexus, and I think is it another Ferrari? Yeah. But nothing came with that. But it's been exceptional. I mean, you know, the odd mistake that's going to happen. I mean, especially when you've got so many cars on track, and you know the concentration level that's needed to stay on track sometimes. And you know, like we said at the beginning, you know, when you watch some of these esports events with pro drivers, they struggle with these cars because they're used to real life cars where you feel things through the body, as where in sim race it's all through the arms generally, unless you've got a motion rig which kind of give you a little bit more feedback. But yeah, some great driving from these guys, and been really impressed with the quality.
And of course we've got the weather conditions and the temperatures changing, the tracks rubbering in and things like that, so the balance of the car throughout the course of the stint changes. The fuel load's going down, the tyres are wearing out, you've got the aerodynamic effect of following other cars as well, so reduced downforce, so that it's an ever-changing beast. You're not starting with point A and finishing with point A. It's dynamic as the car changes as you go through the stint in the race, plus the pressure of course as well at racing in front of 40 other drivers and fighting tooth and nail for position. So fabulous performance from what I've seen from our drivers so far, as we're looking at a good fight now for P9. So 9, 10 and 11 all separated by next to nothing, and that Lexus behind looks like it fancies buying into this fight from the Ferrari ahead.
It does, yeah, as we look at the great livery of a Mr. P. Glover very briefly there.
Yep, the mighty Glover flicks on screen for a moment, currently running P5, not yet stopped at the moment, but doing a good job to keep the car alive so late into the race.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I know the car felt good at this point, and I was setting personal best, so I was not coming in. I had a bit of clear air, and while I was setting personal best, I didn't feel like I needed to come in. It might not be, I wasn't the fastest out there, but because I wasn't slower than, and I was just getting quicker and quicker, I decided to stay out as long as I could.
Especially considering that you've obviously run slightly more fuel to get this far into the race. It's a shame to throw that weight, that time loss away by pitting early. So we look back now actually at Michael Rudolph, who's closing the gap quite dramatically to the Porsche of Polgar in front. Not quite in the shot yet, of course, because Polgar's not stopped for a pit stop, but Rudolph very quickly would run away from the Aston Martin and Paul Jeffrey behind, put a 1.9 seconds of advantage in, I think, about 3 or 4 laps, maybe a little bit less since he overtook. So Michael Rudolph got plenty of lap time in that Ferrari as he's coming up to a little bit of traffic heading into T1, but this is a good point on the racetrack to catch a slower car, because there's a few easy opportunities to get your way past the big Jag ahead.
Could you, I know this is only a 1.5 hour race, but could you imagine doing a 3 hours around here?
I would absolutely adore that. An hour and a half felt like a long time before we started, but felt all too quickly by the time
as we got
finished.
3 as I think that we're looking at Reed, but that was one way to make a move there. I think that was the Mercedes. I think of I don't know who actually that is.
I think it was it's the Alex Albon Spa move, isn't it? You're on the grass, you keep your foot in and see what happens. So great bit of driving there from Alistair Reed. Some great bit of driving there. I mean, I was very surprised that these drivers didn't collect themselves, but the Mercedes just went off the track a little bit and made the move. And you know, if they haven't got a penalty, they might have got one there unless they lifted off. But some great bit of driving. But I think this must be someone lapping, because there's not a Mercedes around Reed on the timing board there, so I'm not quite sure who that driver is actually. So, and it becomes incredibly difficult as a driver when the field's so condensed as this. It's very hard to know who's coming past to lap you, who's fighting you for position, and often that can lead to a little bit of confusion on circuit. So it can.
Spicy. As a driver, obviously you've got the different HUD, haven't you, which you can So rather than just being the leaderboard like we've got here, you can have it so you know which car's behind you, which car's in front of you, and it's generally a good indicator if they're a lap car, as well as the blue flag you get indicated on screen as well. So
yeah, that's one of the advantages we sim racers have over our real life counterparts. Yeah, we've got a little bit more information.
They'll have, I mean, if you talk about Formula 1, they'll have an engineer telling them because they have a track map, on the pit wall, and they'll be able to tell them, Hamilton's coming up to lap you. He's 2 seconds away or something. But drivers don't have this kind of information. As Paul Glover finally pits with 31 minutes to go.
Yep. So Glover in pit lane. Polgar has now dropped a second. So excuse me. Polgar's come out of his pit stop and it's worked really well for him. We don't know what's happened to Rudolph there, but he's currently running P3, so he would have inherited that lead. But an incident has occurred which has dropped him down a third. So currently Paul Jeffrey leads by 3.6 seconds. A further 1.6 back is Michael Rudolph, who's got an almost 6-second advantage from the car behind. So all change at the front of the field, heading into the final 31 minutes and change of this outstanding semi-endurance style Assetto Corsa Competizione race that we've had so far.
Yeah, would you believe it's 30 minutes to go? I mean, that hour's flown by, hasn't it, really?
Yeah, it's been fantastic, and the Assetto Corsa Racing Club at RaceDepartment never fails to produce a good event, an enjoyable experience for all participants. So anybody watching this stream that's not aware of it or has not taken the plunge and joined us at RD for a club race, take note, this kind of fun, you too could have a piece of that. Head over to racedepartment.com, click on the calendar icon that will give you the upcoming events, find something that takes your fancy, and if you're a premium member, get your name down and come and join us on track for the next one, because it's a lot of fun commentating on it, it's a lot of fun watching it back, but it's a heck of a lot more fun when you're out on track participating.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's just an absolute great, as car 114, which is Matanoma, drive-through penalty for exceeding track limits.
Yep, unfortunate there for Matanoma.
I'm surprised not seeing more of that, actually. We are talking about a very windy, narrow track with 40 cars on it. It's pretty good going, actually. We've probably had about 4 cars so far with drive-through for that reason.
It was a big concern for a lot of the drivers I spoke to before the race. There was worried about trying to keep the car on track. You know yourself, when your tyres are running out of grip, it's very easy, not trying to cheat or gain an advantage, but just to make a mistake and run a little bit wide, and before you know it, you've got 1 or 2 of those under your belt, and then it's really hold on tight and hope for the best for the rest of the race. So really good driving, precise driving from everybody in the field so far to keep those drive-through penalties to a minimum, as the lead gap now has dropped to 3 seconds. So Holger's got a little bit more pace at this stage in the race than the Aston Martin in front, closed it down by about 0.6 of a second as we follow Holger's Porsche now, and closed down 3/4 of a second in the last lap.
On his back, on his rear end again, isn't he? He's 600 a second behind. I was just looking down there. Stevenson's currently in 13th position, 21 seconds behind Conan, who's currently in the pits. So Stevenson now moves up into 12th, but he's 6.4 seconds behind Catalin, who's in 11th. So he's making good progress. Umans is doing really well in top 10 there, but Halili's made really good progress. He's in 5th now with Matasuka behind, hunting him down with 2.5 seconds behind.
Yeah. Halili's done a fantastic job, actually. He's been very quiet, not really been involved in much, keeping himself to himself, following his race strategy, and that's paying dividends at the moment for a P5. But going back to Michael Rudolph for a minute, the guy seems to have armfuls of pace around this racetrack, but it's been a bit of a scrappy race, I think, so far. I think he really should be much further up the field than his current P3 with the pace that he's displayed so far. So a little bit scrappy from Michael Rudolph, but he's got 28 minutes just under to make amends for that one, and he's trying very hard to find a way past this Porsche in front, which is, I can tell, I can attest from experience, is not an easy thing to do, as he runs a little bit wide in one of the danger corners.
Both cars run a little bit wide there, I thought. You tend to follow the other car, don't you, Paul, when the one in front goes ahead?
Yeah, I get suckered into following a car for too long, and then I almost, if they make a mistake, I follow them. But if I get away past, I kind of lose my rhythm a little bit because I'm so used to that car being in front. So very easy to get tunnel vision and follow my leader into whatever strife they're getting into.
Yeah. And after the pit stop, Glover's now down into 18th. It's quite Nix is quite far down now in 20th. Matumona still hasn't done his drive-through yet. I think this is his last lap to do that, so he's got to go into the pits, otherwise he'll be disqualified by race control.
Well, hopefully Matumona's seen that one, because that'll be a big shame to have thrown an hour's worth of work away.
Yeah, indeed, and that's another thing, like in these type of races, as infuriating. And as another drive-through has been handed out there to car number 36, John Patterson, who's currently in 10th position. It's a 90-minute race, an hour and a half, and even if you have an incident on the first lap, you don't want to be quitting. There's still a lot can happen for the rest of the race.
You never give up these things, because, as you say, anything can happen. And also, to be fair, the satisfaction of just finishing a race like this one, doing the best job you can in the circumstances you've got, is also incredibly high. It's not always about the position, it's about the commitment to seeing something through to the end is also a really big thing. And plus, ACC is a fabulous driving experience, so even just lapping around and no one to race is massively enjoyable in a competitive environment. Paul, look how much he's working on the steering wheel, Rudolph, at the moment in this Ferrari, really hustling that car along in his pursuit of Holder in front.
Yeah, probably a little bit trying to put him under pressure. Car 114 is cleared, that's Matunumoma. Has cleared his drive-through, and I can see Patterson's now in the pits as well to do the same thing.
Yeah, big shame for John Patterson. That's somebody that appeared on our broadcast quite a bit in the early stages of the race as he tried to make his way through the field in the cars in front. So Patterson, drive-through penalty, he's not really got a lot of time in hand from the traffic behind, so that'll be a costly
he's got
mistake
three
for
cars
him.
As he exits the pits. He's got three cars, a little bit of a coming together behind these two. So interesting what happened there. And Stevenson's now up into 10th position, just under 4 seconds behind Catalin, so he's making a break. And then what's happened to Janssen, who finds himself in 17th. He was quite a way up earlier on in the top 10, so I don't think it's because of the pit stops or he's had an incident of some description.
Janssens, yes, like you rightly say, Janssen was a lot higher up earlier in the race, but seems to have dropped back down again now, and took advantage actually as we saw the car exiting the pit lane and went 4 wide for a few moments coming into T1, and Janssen was the big benefactor of that little race, made a little bit of door contact to the other car, but all's fair in love and war, and made himself 3 positions up in one manoeuvre. So Janssen further back than we would have expected him based on his early performance, but quickly trying to make amends for that one as we head into the final 24 minutes of what's been an outstanding race so far. And there's a little bit of weather starting to creep in on the track radar as well with the cars, so we may yet see a little bit of a sprinkling of rain before this race is over.
So I can see, I was about to comment about Halili's up into 4th, but Matsuka's put the end to that, and then while you were talking, we saw Halili have a little look at Matsuka into the first corner, but decided better off it. So Matsuka currently 19.3 seconds behind Rudolph in 3rd. So let's see if he can get that gap down. Like you say, the radar is hinting there is a change in weather on its way.
Yeah, Matsuka's just ninjing himself in a 4th. I have no idea I've achieved that. Every time I look at the timing screens, it's like, oh, he's 20th, that's good. Oh, he's 14th. Oh, he's 12th. Oh, he's 4th. He's just charging through like a hot knife through butter is Matsuka at the moment, and 19.3 seconds away from the leading trio, so a little bit of ground to make up yet with 23 minutes on the clock. That's a big ask.
Yeah, it's a big ask of anybody, isn't it?
Yeah, it's got to be over a second and then overtake.
And if we've got some weather incoming as it starts to get darker, so it looks like there is some rain on its way. That's going to slow the pace down. So this is going to be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we had a little bit of rain at the last event. So the last Saturday ACC Club race was at Suzuka, and we had a fine sprinkling of rain, sort of 10 minutes into the race, which was difficult because there was a pit window, and then dried up again for the final 10 minutes, which threw a bit of a spanner in the works. So it's looking likely we may have a similar scenario again, as we're on board now, or not on board should I say, but following Janssen in 14th, looking round the outside at a very unlikely spot of one of the lapped cars.
As it really is starting to get dark now on track, so the drivers might need to use their lights very, very soon.
And this is one of those difficult scenarios as a driver. There's only 22 minutes left on the clock. If rain does start to fall, do you hold out on slick tyres, not cost yourself a 30-second pit stop plus? As we see a spinner there, Michael Rudolph again. We're talking about how scrappy he's been, and there we go again. Michael Rudolph's Ferrari pirouettes, almost collects the Audi as he gets back on circuit, but just manages to avoid it, and Rudolph throws it away again. So that'll be curious to see where that's dropped him back to, into the clutches of Matsuoka, I'm afraid.
Yeah, and now that gap is up to 13.8 seconds. Like you say, Matsuoka now, he's only 4.8 away. So Rudolph feeling a little bit under pressure. I can imagine the heart will be pounding. It's a well-known fact that sim racing, your heart rate's higher than in real life, to be honest with you. Seems to be the way. He'll probably be annoyed at himself for that, and even now more nervous because he's put himself into the clutches of a very fast car as Matsuoka just exits the final corner onto the start-finish straight.
Yep, so the key for Michael Rudolph now as we look at the fight for the race lead. So Jeffrey's still leading. Polgar's closed that 3.6 second gap up to practically nothing now. So these two fighting, roles reversed from earlier in the race. Can the Porsche find a way past the Aston Martin, where the Aston Martin failed to find a way past the Porsche at the beginning portion of the race? But back to Rudolph for a minute. Great driver, shown a lot of pace, and the key now for him will be to try and gather himself back together again, calm everything down, settle the car back down again, and enter a rhythm. He's still P3, so he's not lost a position from that spin, although he has lost an armful of time. So Rudolph needs to work hard at fighting in the background and keeping things on track for a strong result in the last 20 minutes of the race. So the dying embers of the race now. It's getting darker, the weather's coming in, and the fighting is no less intense than it has been basically throughout the last hour and 10 minutes.
As these two approach a back marker as well. I think that looks like a Lexus from here.
That's a very quick-paced Jaguar. I recall that from the race. It's a Jaguar that I just could not find a way to close down and overtake. So that'll be interesting to see if that has anything left to play on the race as we look at Janssen again in the thick of things in the Mercedes, trying to recover from whatever problem he experienced earlier on. Currently 14th still at the moment as we flick back to Polgar, trying everything and more as rain starts pouring.
As they overtake the Jaguar into the first corner, the back marker. So, like you were saying, as another car behind goes wide, it's the track. At first instance, you're not going to be wanting to switch to wet, because if you did right now, they would just overheat because there's not enough water on the surface of the tarmac to keep them cool. So, when do you? And even when the game says that it's wet optimum, it sometimes isn't. So you have to kind of make the call yourself. You can't rely on the engineering game at the moment. So so the wipers are now alive and the lights are on. Let's see how this pans out.
Yeah, this is when it gets really spicy. I mean, going back to Suzuka for the last race, the rain fell for a good 10-15 minutes or so, where most drivers stayed out on slick tyres, and you can absolutely, while there's heat in your tyres, and even when it goes away, you can survive on slicks. But a problem with a track like the Hungaroring, when the point switches between slicks you can survive on and slicks you can't survive on, is almost instantaneous. So it's a very difficult call for 18 and a half minutes left on the clock. Do you stay out on slick tyres, try and save yourself a 30 plus second pit stop, probably 40-45 seconds by the time you've gone down pit road and come out again. 45 seconds is a lot of time to lose, so it's worth staying out on slicks if you can survive. But if you're leaving a lap too late and the crossover point hits, you've blown it. Yep, Holger in the Porsche from second, so he's the first to blink of the two race leaders. Throws the Porsche down pit lane, obviously going straight onto wet tyres, trying to take a gamble now, realising that there's not much opportunity to overtake on track, wants to minimise the risk as Rudolph stays out, hoping to find some advantage by staying on track and hoping this rain goes away, but it does look to me like it's going to start coming down heavier rather than disappearing anytime soon.
Yeah, it's a little bit darker there. As Matsuoka has closed that gap up to 1.9 seconds. The problem is when you get round the circuit, because it's so large, as we watch Bellini spin and into the barrier on slick, so he hasn't pitted yet. So this is the kind of case in point is, but when you come around the pitch, you've got to make a call there. But by the time you've come around and completed that lap, it then might be too wet. So as he comes in after that collision with the barrier to take on, I believe, wet tyres.
Yeah, Valini making the right call there. It's a very easy mistake to make, especially in a car that's up on its tiptoes like the Ferrari is. It's a very easy thing to do to pirouette the car into the wall. There'll only be a little bit of damage, so Valini should be alright to just quickly bolt some new boots on and away we go. But Matsuoka now in second position, so he's dispatched Rudolph very quickly indeed. And Matsuoka, fantastic drive, staying out on dry tyres at the moment, so whether he comes into pit or stays out on this rubber is yet to be decided, as we've got 16.5 minutes on the clock. Jeffrey stays in the race lead. We saw him previous lap deciding not to pit and sticking on the original rubber. Rudolph stays third. Halile currently in fourth position as we switch to him in the unfancy Jaguar. So it's coming down heavier now, Paul. You can see
quite a few cars in pits. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 currently in the pits at the moment. So if you're further up the field, you can take this gamble. That you see it in Formula 1 all the time. If you're, you might as well just put the wets on and see how that goes. So. Interesting times. I'll be honest, I hate this track in the wet. I seem to spin, and this is where my race kind of went downhill a little bit after, even when I pitted the wets. And at Suzuka, because the rain here is pretty heavy, but in Suzuka it was just like a constant medium to light rain.
An English drizzle.
It was drizzle, and it was great. You could keep the tyres in the. And I had some pace, but then eventually we pitted for wets. And the problem was, as soon as I came on the wets, for the first lap, I had no heat in them, and I couldn't. So the thing here was like I didn't want to pit too early and have the same thing happen to me again. Well, it didn't really matter because as soon as I put the wets on, mate, I was rubbish. Stop and go penalty for spinning the pit lane for car 669. I don't know who that is, but.
That's Jessup that's got the stop and go penalty, unfortunately, in the Audi.
Oh, yeah, there it is, Jessup,
Interesting takeaway from this little pit window variety is Michael Rudolph has decided to throw caution to the wind and gamble a little bit.
Yes.
And he's the only one of the front runners to have not stopped in pit lane. So we've already seen him running a little bit wide, but so far this is a really nice drive from Rudolph.
And you can see the glistening now on the surface of the track as well as he tries to make the car stop for the chicane. And as you'll notice, he's staying off the curbs in certain places now, as where before he would have been using those to his advantage, using as much of the track as possible. And because even with wet tyres, to be fair, you probably would stay away from the curbs anyway, because the water will catch in the little pockets on the curbs, because they've got raised sections. As where with the wet tyres in a car, the way the grooves are inbuilt, you're supposed to force the water out and clear and allow the tyre to touch the surface of the tarmac. With slicks, the problem is if you're on slicks and you've got rubber down, if you hit the rubber, you lose grip because the rubber becomes slippery. So on slicks, really, you should take the non-racing line in order to stay on the track. But yeah, I'm surprised he hasn't pitted yet. But I guess it's worth a gamble at the moment.
He's got nothing to lose at this stage in the race. It's worth trying it out to see if there's anything. To be fair to Rudolph, he's driving very smooth, very neat racing lines, so it doesn't look like it's affecting him too much at this stage in proceedings. And just a little bit of news, a little bit of insider information, because I was in the cockpit. Paul Jeffrey, like a pillock, has forgotten that his car is automatically going to change brake pads. So he's, instead of having a 30-second pit stop, has enjoyed the benefits of a 1-minute 30-second pit stop and dropped himself well out of contention now. Coming out of pit lane P8, but has managed to make it up to 6th so far. So thrown that one away, as Rudolph still stays out on slick tyres. So this is a
rear end
drive.
has a little bit of a wobble there. That was a brown pants moment right there, wasn't it?
Yeah, Rudolph had a very scary moment there. He's still been a little bit greedy with the curves, but seems to be able to get away with it just about. So it looks like Rudolph's strategy to make up for some of the lost time from the earlier spin is basically see if he can survive on slick tyres and use that use the track space advantage of not coming into pit lane to take an unlikely victory based on all the trials and tribulations he's gone through. He's got a fair bit of time in hand from Polgar and Matsuoka behind, so it'll be interesting. Can he survive as the rain comes even heavier still for the last 12 minutes 21 seconds of this fabulous race?
He's got Polgar's 44 seconds behind now. Has actually come up on the timing screen, so yeah, that's quite. And car 669 has cleared a stop and go, so that's Jessert has pitted and cleared that now. The race control has cleared that down. Interesting times here for all concerned. What decisions do you make? As also you can see the spray is now coming off the back of Halili in the Jaguar. So and as he outbrakes himself into the first corner, runs quite wide there, but quite a bit of runoff on that corner. So probably the best one to make that mistake.
Yeah, I think at this sort of juncture in the race, so with these kind of conditions, you can see puddles forming on the track. You can see it's got a lot darker and a lot wetter as we follow a gaggle of cars here now with Wolf currently in P3. Sees a slower car in front of him, clears him, no problem. This is about survival. This is not pushing hard. This is not lap time.
Making that mistake. You'll probably see me spin in a moment as well. So there I go. So I wasn't enjoying this moment. I was shouting on the TeamSpeak. I hate this weather.
This is heavy storm conditions now. This is not a passing rain breeze. This is heavy storm conditions.
Where the hell does this come from moment. We didn't plan this on the server. As another car is on the pit straight there. Just clipping the rear of the barrier as Matsuoka makes a move into the first corner. I think that's a back marker. I think that's not.
I think that's Polgar actually. I think Matsuoka's made
as
way
he
past
spins
Polgar
in front of it, so the other cars have to take a voiding action there. That was very, very lucky. I think that was on Polgar, wasn't it? So and he hasn't pitted yet, has he, for wet? So that's where Polgar has. So this is very, very interesting tactics from Rudolph and Matsuoka. Both taking a risk, but it would be a solid finish, both first and third, especially solid for Matsuoka considering what happened to him at the start. He's had a brilliant comeback.
I believe Matsuoka's been hit in for wet tyres, so if memory serves me, it's just Rudolph at the moment that's currently running in these crazy conditions on slicks at the moment. They will be like two chunks of ice, but at the moment he's got a 42-second advantage over Polgar, so he's not losing much time at all.
He's lost about 9 seconds, I think, there, isn't he? I think was it 49 at one point, or I just made that up. But as long as he keeps it on the black stuff, I mean, the only thing is he could be losing 3 or 4 seconds a lap, 5 seconds a lap potentially.
But to be honest though, Paul, I think this is an absolutely monumental performance from Rudolph to manage to keep that far in front.
I mean, I can't even do it in the wet,
conditions.
let alone do it on slicks.
Yeah, brilliant drive. This is something that kind of escaped me at the time when racing, but really, really strong performance from Rudolph in the Ferrari. Only lost a couple of seconds in that sector, but bear in mind his slick tyres will be freezing cold now, and the wets of the chasing pack will have warmed up to an operating window. So
there's a car spun round there, and there's these two collide, Umans and Stevenson. There was another car that was spun. We picked that up now. That's Bellini. He was spun. You couldn't really see him through the fog, but he was there. And it doesn't look like he's got his lights on. So, it makes it harder to spot as we're looking at Paul Jeffrey just 1.4 seconds now behind Halili in the Porsche.
Yep, so Jeffrey on a recovery drive following his disastrous pit stop and chasing down Halili. Now Halili, again, another driver that's been really good all race, kept himself to himself, kept out of trouble as Jeffrey navigates past a spun Audi, I think it is there, and
wasn't me
very,
that time,
very tense times. Very, very tense times, and you can't really appreciate it from this helicam view, but on board in these cars in these conditions, if you're following in the spray of one or two cars, you can't see the circuit. Never mind the apex. It's very much a game of muscle memory and chance as well. Matcha then now P3, so the Ferrari has appeared out of nowhere.
So Polgar's obviously gone in the pits because he's now second. Matsuka's taken the lead. Where's our friend? Where's he gone?
Yeah, Rudolph. I'm just scanning down the times and can't see him. So something's happened to Rudolph, who was leading the race on slick tyres, if we remember. So not quite sure what's gone on there. Missed it on the timing screens as we watch Stevenson doing an outstanding recovery drive in the big Bentley. Now P6 having just...
as the Audi behind, or Ferrari behind, I don't know what that was actually. It looked like I think it was an Audi, I think I was right first time, has nearly put it into the pit wall, but it also has got off now, again, down the start-finish straight, so I can play it. And Stevenson, again, must be, the amount of water on the track now is where aquaplaning comes into play. These are really treacherous conditions for our racers, as the rear end of that Bentley is on a little bit of a wobble down the straight, for crying out loud. You shouldn't be doing that. To be fair,
the Bentley has been designed for these kind of conditions. As Jeffrey gets the back end, everybody's now scrabbling around as Matsuka's got the race lead.
For any grip they can get. As we're looking at Carlson into the first corner. Will he overshoot? Yes, he will. It's like watching the Nürburgring last season in Formula 1. As I think that's Patterson. Is that Patterson? Yeah, Patterson now on the inside of Carlson. Sorry, on the outside actually now as we approach the left-hander down the hill. So I think Carlson would have that. As Carlson spins and gives Patterson 11th position.
Yeah, these are very much cling on and hope for the best conditions at the moment, apart from Matsuka, who somehow must have dry settings on his server because he's walking away from the rest of the grid, so significantly faster than the other cars out on circuit at the moment. Amazing recovery drive from pole position to dead last to race lead. Basically, he's led the only two parts of the race that matter, the start and the end. The middle bit's just passing time, so... Great result for, great drive, should I say, so far for Matsuka. But the conditions ever worsening now. You can see how dark it is on screen. There's fights throughout the field, not with other cars, but just with the tracks.
Into the barrier.
Oh, that's a shame for Ritter, straight into the barrier, but should survive. It's quite difficult to totally wreck a car in ACC, and there's only 5 minutes left on the clock, so Ritter should live to fight another day on that one, I think. As well, looking at Janssen, who's dropped to 15th, so dropped back yet further has Janssen. Disappointing for him, and David Marks currently, can he make it round the corner or not? No, he can't, not by a long way. Wow, that's... brakes not required here. I don't think he touched
the brakes there, did he? Stevenson now in 5th.
Stevenson, good workmanlike performance from him after recovering from his stop-go penalty early in the race. Dropped back to low teens, I think it was at one stage. So great recovery drive from Will Stevenson. Shame to have seen him taken out of the action so early with the stop-and-go. Otherwise, he could very much have been a contender for a stronger result as this race draws to its final conclusion. Last 4.5 minutes, mate.
Yeah, we're 45 laps completed so far. We'll probably get up to about 48. So some really challenging conditions. That looks like Stevenson to me in the there has just been passed by Halili in the Porsche. Yeah, the timing board is updated to confirm what I've just seen. So we're looking at the race leader Matsuka. 46 laps completed.
Stevenson obviously recovering from some kind of incident caused Vallini to press the eject button and fire himself into the outside barrier, but again Vallini should recover from that one. Everybody's at least 15-20 seconds away from their ultimate lap time in these conditions, so carrying a little bit of damage at this stage of the race is not the end of the world by any stretch. It's just a case of, as soon as you think you're in an aquaplane, get off the gas, shut your eyes, hope for the best, and these are fun, if slightly frustrating conditions, I must admit.
I would say frustrating.
Judging by the TeamSpeak chat at this stage in the race, where I suggest that maybe frustration is the mild version of what was going through most of our drivers' heads. There was They were swearing in many different languages as we see Lee Hutchinson running wide in P22. And Polgar as well there, Paul.
We put a server config setting in now for it to allow rain but not torrential thunderstorms like we've had here, because while it's a spectacle for the viewer, it's going back to what I was saying before, with sim racing, it's hard to get a real feel for the track conditions, and especially in conditions like this, it is hard to know where that limit is, and that's why a lot of these guys are spinning.
Yeah, but I must admit, I've often wanted to race storm conditions online and never found a server, so I've scratched that particular itch, which is nice. And for me personally, I was grateful for a little bit of confusion and mayhem to recover from the nightmare pit stop, so it's kind of saved my bacon a little bit, staying out of trouble as we see a car overshooting big time in the background, manages to get it under control, doesn't collect Villini in front.
Is that Jeffrey having a little collision there with a back marker?
Yeah, that's myself collecting one of the Audis, unfortunately, in the fierce weather conditions, but managed to get it spin up. A little apology on TeamSpeak. We both said, on your way, sunshine, and no stopping required. Away we go before anybody.
And Villini going wide. Oh, getting back onto the track. Yeah, there he is. Yeah.
It's not to be underestimated how slippery that AstroTurf side is.
Yeah, but that corner was particularly painful. I found that I literally had to... I think I realised what my problem is that what I was trying to do, I was trying to take these corners in the same gear that I was in the wet, in the dry. And it only dawned on me about a minute before the end of the race that, you idiot, you have to go down another gear. Of course you are, because you can't carry as much speed. So yeah, if I had clocked onto that a little bit sooner, maybe I wouldn't have been making so many mistakes that I was. I don't think I would have been error free. But yeah, I was doing a lot of expletives were leaving my mouth at this point.
Indeed they were, as we just flicked off Matasuka now started his final lap.
Matthew's done really well to get into third position ahead of you there, hasn't he?
Yes, superb drive. Kept himself under the radar all event, and just went about his business, caused no problems, got in no problems, and stuck to strategy. Fantastic drive. And to be fair, ladies and gents watching at home, I can't overstate this enough. Everybody who manages to stay on the track at this point is doing a phenomenal job, because this is wildly slippy conditions. At one stage, coming down the start finish straight, a car facing the wrong way appeared in front of me, so really Code Brown moments as we see a car now as he overshooting braking zone as he looks to get past Polgar. No, he isn't. A great overtaking move there from Maciek. So just speaking about him in P3, now moves himself up into second, so fabulous result. And
then Paulus there nearly collecting another car into the first corner, and the car ahead decides to give them some room, and I think let them past.
Yep, so all guns blazing in the final few moments as we are back on with our race leader, the majestic Wolf Mashuka, doing a fabulous job to get himself up into what looked like an impossible race lead just 30-40 minutes ago, but a race lead it is, and a commanding performance in the end with all the issues everybody's had behind. He's actually stroked it home and has got a 60-second advantage over the chasing pack. So Matasuka, phenomenal performance, deserving race winner, and a beautiful drive from a difficult start.
Yeah, an absolute great drive. 48 laps completed. He's come over the start-finish line to take the win. And like we say, Mathieu, when the camera flicks to him, he'll be coming over hopefully to finish second. He's only got a 2.8 second gap to Polgar, so he's just got to keep it steady right now. Not do anything silly. Stay away from the curbs. That's it. And keep it on the track, because if he spins, that's third gone, and potentially might even, second gone, and Paul Jeffrey might even come along and take third off him. So
really cool to see, though, in an hour and a half race in different weather conditions and everything, Mathieu managed to make an overtake for position one lap before the checkered flag. So really as close as you like, even with these bizarre conditions that we've got out on circuit today.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant drive, and should be very, very pleased with that. And like I say, completely went under the radar as well. We didn't really give him that much attention. And Polgar 2.8 seconds down the line, will also 4.1 seconds now across the line in third, and Paul Jeffrey will be coming along very shortly to finish in fourth. There's a car in the background, takes a little spin. I think that's Villini. No, sorry, that's Bellini here. He's done well to finish 5th there. He's
and Stevenson sideways through the final corner before the line, so that would have been a little bit hairy scary trying to keep that one on track as illegally rounds the last corner at 4.7. Very close actually, to be fair, from 2nd through to probably all the way down the top 10. Very close finishing time, so great performance from everybody there. Been fights all the way through the race.
And Uman's crossed the line in 8th, because some people left the server there, so the leaderboard is updated a little bit incorrectly, but that was 8th for Ricardo Uman. So yeah, an absolutely great race for everybody. Matsuka with the win, Matteo in 2nd, and Polga 3rd, rounding out our podium. That was fantastic. Effortless. Well, it wasn't effortless actually, it was hard work.
Far from it.
That's what that was. Yeah, really enjoyed that, driving it and commentating on it.
Yep, same here. Fantastic. Hope everybody enjoyed it at home as well. And Paul, been a pleasure to sit alongside you in the virtual commentary box for the first time, my good sir.
And with you, sir, and with you. It's been an absolute dream come true.
And everybody, get signed up for the Assetto Corsa Racing Club races. Hope to see you on track next time, and thanks for your time for watching.
Well, that was an outstanding event, and we hope you enjoyed watching it. Please do give us a like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, and of course the Race Department podcast. Just search Race Department at your podcast provider of choice. Thank you to everybody who's taking part in these events and our wonderful racing club organisers. Till next time, my name's been Paul, this has been RDTV. See you later. Ta-ra.